Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right. Well, welcome to another Cloud Podcast. It's Friday. We're all happy. The big weekend's coming up. And I'm excited today because we have Chris Beck. He is a CIO over at Harry's Razors, Harry's Inc. Chris, welcome to the program and good to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Pleasure to be here. Very excited to get in and talk IT.
Yeah, there's always something changing in IT. And we have Jeff Young as well, retired / not retired CIO. Jeff, welcome to the program as well. And thanks for coming back.
Oh, absolutely. Glad to be here. And by the way, Chris, just want you to know I've got 4 boys and I got them all Harry's Razors for Christmas. So there you go.
I love it. So way to go. And for your wife, we have Flamingo too. We have multiple brands.
Yeah, left her out.
Whole family. Yes.
We can give the 30-second pitch right now if you want.
That's
sure,
fun.
if you'd like. So Harry's is a disruptive DTC. We started as DTC company. We started as men's shaving. We have since spread our influence. We have a number of brands underneath the umbrella now. So you could really think of Harry's more of a next generation CPG company. So we have brands that do men's shaving and body care. To be honest with you, we have shower gels and soap, and so it's more than just shave at this point. It's personal care. We have Harry's, which is focused more toward men. We have Flamingo, which is a woman's brand and hair removal, and we have Cat Person, which is a brand, surprisingly enough, that sells cat products and cat food. And we have, that's one. And we have Headquarters, which is root care, so scalp care for yourself. And we just recently purchased a company called Lumi, which deals with all body deodorant. So we are growing, certainly.
Well, the hair removal product worked great.
Yeah.
You're telling me. I mean, Alex is the only one with a full head of hair.
I know, look at him.
Genetics, right? Well, Chris, give us a 2-minute snapshot of, how your career path, how you got to Harry's, your IT journey as in your career.
Yeah, it's a great question. We probably need more than a few minutes, Alex, to be honest with you. I started in IT. So first, traditionally not in technology. I was a history major in college, so no technology. Stumbled into it. I was working at Staples at the time, and I was selling computers without knowing anything about it. And a person I sold a computer to, surprisingly enough, ran the co-op office at the local college that I went to. And she said, "I'm sure I can get you a different kind of job, more IT or technology focused." And I said, "Sure, why not?" And that kind of took me off on a journey that led through starting out on a service desk for a trading floor. And I worked in finance doing technology support. And then just over the years, I've had the ability and the opportunities to really shift focus here and there and slowly move up from a service desk or a help desk to desktop support, to server support, to managing teams on the server and back-end infrastructure side, to eventually supporting more of the front-end business users. And ultimately, I've managed outsource providers and now at Harry's have the wonderful privilege to manage a fantastic technology team that oversees a lot of different areas. So have been able to grow the expertise that I have in some areas and always constantly looking to learn and continue to grow. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
That's great. So service desk to CIO, it could be a book title right there.
Yeah,
it's a great story. That's great.
It's crazy. So I think, IT and technology has definitely changed over the course of the last 20 plus years, 25 years. So it's, the journey's been crazy, but it's also been just as exciting to see kind of not just the influence that technology and IT has in general to the business, but to see the changes that it's made in people's lives. I think it's been such a great career choice that when I was starting out, it was not fledgling or it wasn't too new, but it still wasn't something that you had a lot of people going into. It wasn't, as hot of an industry as it has become over the course of time. So it's wonderful to see how it's changed businesses and how it's changed individuals' lives for people that have been involved in the sector.
Yeah, one of the things we've seen and talked a lot about on the podcast is how IT has changed, right? From the keep the lights on to now it's a very strategic role within most organizations. If it's not, the organization is going to not do very well. So I want to dive into some of the topics that we spoke about beforehand, and really, this idea of talent retention, the great resignation. I know it's been talked about a lot. What have you seen the last couple of years in just that aspect of keeping good talent, finding good talent, and how that's affected your role and your ability to execute on your initiatives?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. And I have been very fortunate in my career in that I have had very historically low turnover on the teams that I manage. And it's not down to me, it's down to the directs that I have and kind of the culture that you build within an organization. Lately, certainly it's been more, not so much for us, but more across the industry. It's been very dynamic, very shifting. I think companies are now going through, yes, there's a lot of churn within technology people, and how do you retain those people? And I think part of it is making sure that your employees and your team members, they feel needed and they feel listened to within the organization. And I think some places in some organizations wait until somebody's leaving, wait until they give notice to now say, oh, wait a minute, how can I counter you? How can I keep you here? And that's a double-edged sword, because you don't want somebody to just stay because you're offering them something right now. Well, on the other side of things, it can also come down as, well, why couldn't you offer this before? Why are you waiting until I leave? So I think it's our responsibility to treat every member within our teams in a very respectful way. But more so, I think I've always found that it's down to making sure that they feel listened to and genuinely being concerned for their career development. And I think that's why a lot of people will leave organizations, because they feel like they're not going to achieve their aspirations at a particular place or on a team, and they need to go someplace else to either level set or jump up. And I think if you're always having open conversations with the people on the team regarding what they want to achieve, and that is mostly professional, but it's also personally. I've had people on the team that have had aspirations and dreams to do something, and it's my goal and my job to really help them achieve that. So I think sometimes it's just talking them through, mentoring them. Other times it's giving them the opportunities to be able to shine in areas that they want to move into. So example would be if there's somebody on the team that wants to work within project management and they really want to work on their coordination, their organization, and take a step in a different direction, then it's my job to find opportunities for them to be able to experience that, to learn and to grow within that area, and decide if it's something that they truly want to do. So I think at the end of the day, people want to feel respected, and they want to feel like you're just as invested in their career as they are in the success of the team and the company that they work for.
Yeah. So bottom line, based on that description, you have a lot to do with why you have low turnover rate. So congratulations to you on that.
I appreciate that, Jeff. And I think, I honestly don't see it as an added responsibility. It's just naturally part of my responsibilities at work. So it's not
for
like
you, it sounds fundamental, and that's awesome. Yeah,
it is.
It's not that easy for some. And keep in mind, for our listeners that don't know where you're located, you're in New York City, where any of your employees could get 200 other jobs without leaving their front door.
Right? We laugh,
because they're
Jeff.
out there.
We laugh, and I say, if we ever have an open headcount, I could probably just open up the window in downtown and poke my head out and say, does anybody know SAP, or does anybody know? And I'd have 10 people on the street would raise their hands. So yeah, it's a very, the talent pool is definitely there. And on the flip side, like you're saying, the opportunities for people to move elsewhere and do things are also there.
Yeah, and it really is a big piece of the leadership aspect of being an executive at a company is, it's not just, leading by the hammer and rod, right, type of thing. It's coming alongside your employees, the people that you manage, the people that they manage, to make sure they're being heard. And I think that's changed over the years, and people have seen, that you can't manage the old way anymore. And I think it's good. And we've seen it with a lot of the contact center projects that we do, and a lot of technology involved, where people will go from the help desk, or they'll go from the, support aspect and move into some other part of the organization, right? Maybe they got in on the service desk and it's like, this is great, I like the company, but I'm not really for IT. Can I get into operations somewhere or sales somewhere?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think people are more fluid now with what they want to do. And I think people's interests, they really put a lot of a lot of a lot of weight into what their interests are. And the job no longer is, it's just a paycheck. It has to interest them. And that comes down to the people they work with, comes down to the work that they do. And we can't lie and say it's not compensation. Compensation doesn't play a part in it as well. But if you think about those three things, their coworkers and the culture, the type of work that they do, and the compensation. And you might be able to get away with not having one of those, but you have to have two. You have to have at least two. And I think, to your point, the old management style of kind of directive, this is what you have to do, go do it. It doesn't work anymore. And I think leaders now require more emotional intelligence. You have to really empathize. You have to understand what drives people and help them get there. But that also segues from people into IT's function and role within an organization now as well. I think it's less of this is what you have to do, this is what we're going to do as an IT organization. Now it's more, and it's even changed even more recently too, whereas it then shifted more into an enabler. How can technology enable business growth? And I think, how can we help achieve what the business goals and objectives are? And even now, that now has started to shift a bit more in my mind to be more along the lines of how can we drive the business too? So instead of just here are the business goals, what can we do to support that? Almost a supportive function. It's now shifted into what can we proactively do to increase revenue, or to increase the top line, or cut the bottom line. So I think there's a lot of places for technology to continue to grow into and to really drive organizations forward.
Yeah, and that. Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, we know Harry's, and if anybody's listening and hasn't looked, they're going to look you up now. And we know you've gone on quite a growth chart here. Can you frame your group for the listeners as far as, how big is your group? How much has it grown in the last 2 years? Just so they'll know.
Yeah, I think we've grown as the company has grown for sure. And I've been at Harry's about 3.5 years. And when I first started globally, we only had about 10 people within the IT team. And that was split between Germany, which is where our manufacturing facility is, where we make the razor blades, and the US, and we'll say New York at the time. The team has grown. I think by the end of the year, we'll be close to 40 people. So we've quadrupled the size of the team in a little bit over 3 years. And I think that just goes with the growth of the company. And I think Harry's in general also made a shift from being all DTC when we first started to now you can see our products in retail stores, mass retail. So Target and Walmart and, pretty much everywhere. So with that requires expanding our enterprise business systems. And how do we support an organization that was all 100% DTC to now split between retail and DTC? And you have to support both sides of the house equally. So that's where kind of the growth has really happened. You have to be very careful and responsible with how you grow the team to make sure that you don't grow so fast that you're outpacing what the business can support. But I think our teams are very, very busy at this point. So will we continue to grow? Perhaps. I definitely see the opportunity for us to grow in certain areas. But again, it has to be done in a very responsible way that's supportive of the business and not getting, as they would say, too far in front of our skis where, we've hired a lot of people and now maybe the need isn't there. So just as long as you're careful about it, I think it's definitely a growing part of the business, and we're going to continue to scale the team as the revenue and the sales and the company itself grow.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. And you're mentioning, direct to consumer to now you're, doing the retail side, and it brings up a whole different set of challenges. As you guys look to scale and expand and grow, like what are some of the key challenges that you face that maybe took you by surprise, from year one when you first started to when you had to, almost quadruple your size of your team?
Yeah, I would say organization for sure. The good thing about Harry's is we are a digitally native company, so we don't have a lot of let's say, historical on-prem tech debt, right? There are some organizations that have data centers and they have a significant amount of their outlay in budget is just spent maintaining these systems and these environments. We didn't have that at Harry's. Again, digitally native. So we like to say we were born in the cloud. So the majority of our stuff from day one was in the cloud. But that eventually starts to grow, and you have to be able to manage and architect that in a very responsible way moving forward. So I would say that has been a challenge in the past. I think also for us, as we mature as an organization, if I'm going to speak specifically around technology, we do hire very smart, very bright and intelligent people. And I think we eventually come to the point where there might be an area where we just can't figure it out. We have to bring in some expertise to help us out. So I think that's where, when we think about growing the company to the next level, or at least growing the department to the next level, it's really looking at where do we have those skill gaps and what do we need to fill in with some more seasoned people that maybe know the technology or know the area a little bit more than plugging in a very intelligent person that will learn it, and they will. But with the pace that the business is growing and the pace that we have to support them, we have to start to think about bringing in people that have that expertise.
I think that's really interesting when you say that you were born in the cloud. That takes so much off of your plate that as you know from other places, that the legacy of what can be installed and entrenched into an organization, and trying to decide how to go hybrid or pull part of it out, or what can't I take out, and you're clean of all that, which is fascinating to me. That's a neat start spot.
If I tell you, Jeff, that it's made my job that much easier, it's an understatement, because I, of course, have peers and CIOs at other companies that are going through the very painful work of moving their things to the cloud, and it's costly, it's time consuming. In some cases, they have to put the business on hold while they do an infrastructure project, which is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to be the bottleneck to stop your business growth. So I think for us, it can definitely be seen as a competitive advantage within our company that we started that way.
Yeah, I think so. Because and as we both know a lot of CIOs, and we both attend a lot of the same things, and some people even end up migrating back because they didn't do a good job, and it's just a huge amount of cost and just expended energy that you didn't have to address at Harry's, which is super nice.
It's true. I'm very fortunate, very happy. I'm a happy man.
Great.
Yeah. Well, there's been we've talked to several companies, that started off that same way, kind of born in the cloud, tech first. And, some of their mantras are, we're a technology company. We just happen to sell XYZ, or we just happen to sell razors. Right. But if it's a tech forward company, they're going to use that to their advantage to get that competitive advantage in the market and make you more nimble and able to scale and acquire companies and all of that.
I agree. And I think depending on the type of companies you want to acquire, if you have, let's say, a type of platform where they can come on where, you don't have a lot of tech debt, and you're not saying, we're, let's say, a company that's been around for decades, and come on. I mean, if you think about a newer startup company, what's the appeal for them to come to a more established company outside of, maybe the sale price, but the support structure is going to be much different than they would encounter from a company like Harry's. So if we were to go to an acquisition target, let's just say, and we offer them a digitally native platform where they can come on, and we have support teams that are used to supporting in a very forward-thinking and futuristic way, I think it's a very appealing proposition to them.
Yeah.
You said one thing, and just tell me you can't talk about it if you can't talk about it. But I was intrigued when you said, the IT team can bring growth opportunities to the company, as opposed to just be there to make reality somebody else's dream. You're saying some of these dreams come from the IT group. Is there an example you can share? Because these are going to be IT listeners, and again, without spilling any secret sauce, so if I'm stepping where I can't, just tell me to be quiet.
No, I can't get into too much, Jeff, but I think just think about a couple of things. Again, a much newer company, I would say Harry's is. So again, to allude to what we said before, sometimes the business is growing so fast that they may not know what they need. So we all know about supply chain difficulties and challenges that have been here now. And some people aren't even thinking about what IT can do to drive that forward and to really enact and implement change within the supply chain world. So that's just one small example where automation can come in that the business may not be thinking about it, where it's going to ultimately drive revenue at the end of the day. For the amount of product that you can pass through and you can deliver in a much more timely manner is going to lead to increased sales. And I think some areas of the business may not see that. They may not think about that in a certain way. So I think that's just one that I guess publicly say. There's, of course, some other things on the back end that we do to try to drive business.
Oh, that's good. I mean, you improve productivity, you reduce costs. That's straight to the bottom line. So that's good.
Yeah. And I think it's probably the mindset and the culture of the organization to be able to look at technology and say, how can we use tech to enhance production? How can we use it to enhance distribution, supply, all those issues? Instead of looking elsewhere, they see tech as that advantage, right? And the ability to, we'll see where we can fix it with technology.
Right. And I think it can be more than just collecting and analyzing customer data, right? Okay, what can we do to reach our customers in a better way, which is huge in its own right. But you're thinking about digital twins, which used to be from a manufacturing perspective, I'm going to create a digital twin for how I manufacture this. It's now moved into process. It's moved into, even like we said before, the supply chain. How can I create a digital copy of my supply chain in a virtual world where I can now play in that area and tweak things to see how it's going to, at the end of the day, affect the business? So, I hate to say the sky's the limit, because that's no longer the limit, but I think technology in itself is changing so rapidly that, sometimes it can be overwhelming to some people because it's changing so rapidly. You don't want to make an investment in a certain technology that might be outdated. So there's always that fine line of driving the business forward, but maybe not getting invested into something that's not going to be around 3 years from now. And I think that's probably a risk that everyone in technology has now. What are the right investments I want to make in technology?
Right. And I suppose, what we see in the SaaS world is if you get on a new platform and it doesn't work, a lot of times it can, I don't want to say easy, but it's a lot easier to flip to another SaaS platform. A lot of kind of fail fast, but fail forward, mantra, where it's, hey, this is brand new technology. It might help us in AI or some sort of, data collection or BI. And if it doesn't work, let's flip and try, test this one. And you can do it a lot faster, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you certainly can. And I think that whole agile approach also of going with an MVP, your minimal viable product, which doesn't have to apply to a physical product. It can apply to a process, anything, is very attractive. And yes, to your point, in a more modern way, in a modern environment where there are multiple players that are doing the same thing now. So you almost have your choice. Whereas in the past, you would have to go with a monolithic technology company. This was the service or the product that they offer. That's the only game in town. Now you have startups in the digital space that what may have been an option of one before is now an option of 20. And I think, yes, you have to go through and weed through and find out the right ones that are a fit for your organization. But very nimble companies like ours have the ability to truly, it's not just a phrase to say you use best in breed. You really do. And you can pick and choose which are the best for my particular situation and integrate that system into your overall workflow in a much better way than you were able to in the past. It used to require a huge lift to implement a new tool. Now, to your point, it could be done with relatively low lift, with potentially low risk, depending on the solution.
Yeah, you always have, the migration from A to B. There's always that's always going to be a challenge. But at least the old day investment in the bricks and mortar, the servers, the computer room, all that goes away. So that gives you lots of flexibility. But it's still not to be underestimated. You still want to do the right thing and get it right if you can the first time, because migrations they're tough either way.
At the end of the day, if you have to remigrate again, the lift may be not as big as it was. However, the impact to the users is still the same. If the users are impacted, and if your employees are impacted, your end users, you're going to, at the end of the day, decrease productivity in some fashion.
Right.
But all users are patient and understanding. So.
Of course.
Especially
of course they are.
So we talked a little bit about, acquisitions and mergers and whatnot, and even the full body lotion one that you guys recently brought on. What are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome when bringing in a new organization and integrating them into the culture, integrating them into the technology? Expand a little bit upon that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think each situation is going to be different because I've been through a number of M&A activities in my career over the years. And first and foremost, I've always found that the culture has to be a fit. And I think the companies that do that in the right way and do their homework beforehand, of course, the financials always have to work out. And you have to make sure that the products that your target has are going to complement your suite of products or services. So I think that part is always there, but it takes effort to do due diligence on the cultural aspect. And I think that's where companies can sometimes fall short. And I think if you make sure that the companies are aligned from a mission statement, from a vision of the company, even down to what are their philanthropic activities and what do they like to, provide money and funding to, and how do they like to help their environment or their organization or other individuals. I think that has to be in alignment with what your company does. So I always say that the due diligence has to extend beyond just the financials and the products, but also go to the culture of the company. So with that being said, some of the challenges, of course, we're in technology. We know there's always technology challenges to run into. But I think as long as the organization realizes that they need to have patience, right? And everything can't be done overnight. You can't integrate in a company and their systems and all of their technology stack in a day, right? It takes a fair amount of time to do it right. And to go back to what we said before, there is that MVP. So you have to look at what do we absolutely need for day one? And if it's integrating in their financial system so we can report that in a timely manner, okay, then you move with that. And then as long as you have a plan for bringing the rest of the organization or the rest of the stack or process along with it, then I think you're okay. But if you don't have the culture down, there's going to be friction at every stage of that journey. Whereas if the employees and the people that are involved understand each other because culturally they're aligned, I think you have a much better chance of success. And even though you're going to always come across road bumps along the way, I think people do tend to be patient if they're all on board and aligned and kind of rowing in the same direction. I think they're more understanding than if you were to try to integrate a company that is already resistant to that, then any road bumps can cause major friction.
Mm-hmm. That all starts from the top. That starts from you and your colleagues in the boardroom, and you bring that on down, and that makes a big difference. That's a good point about the culture. Excellent point.
Agree, Jeff. And to what we said before, emotional intelligence. I think if you put yourself, and that's always served me well in my career, and it's a bit of advice that if I can impart on anyone else, you always have to reframe the situation, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And I know it sounds like a very old-fashioned way of thinking, but it's legitimately true. And that if you can understand where they're coming from, understand their point of view, and how you can make things better for them, things are just going to go well. And I think as a leader in an organization, any CIO or any leader in the organization has to constantly be doing that. You have to put yourself in the person you're talking to, see things through their eyes, and see what's really important to them, and make sure that you're helping them. It's always a two-way street, and kind of gone, even thinking about vendor negotiations, gone are the days of, zero sum where I win, you lose. That's it. Like there has to be a give and take on everything. And part of that is understanding where somebody else is coming from and making sure that both parties leave happy. And it's the same way with the team, whether it's an integration or managing or leading a team. You have to understand that both parties need to be happy and content with what's going on.
Yeah.
People don't need to get everything they want. They just want to be heard.
Exactly.
Precisely.
Precisely.
They'll compromise if they've been heard.
They'll compromise as long as they know, and you have to be honest and genuine about it. If you listen to them and really make sure that they're heard, and then, don't just leave it, make efforts to help them achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I really liked how we brought it full circle, right? At the very beginning about talent acquisition, retention. It all came down to leadership and having the empathy, card, or, ability to have that EQ, and just bringing it full circle. And it really comes down to all aspects of the business, right? Implementing, working with your team, acquisitions, all of that. But, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I wish we could go on further, but we all have our weekends to get to.
Absolutely, Alex. It's been a pleasure. Happy to come on anytime you'd like. I think it's a great forum for people to hear different viewpoints from all of these podcasts that you have. So my hat's off to you and Jeff. Great operation, and happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, we absolutely appreciate it. And Jeff, thanks for always co-hosting with me. Bringing on these great guests is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Chris. Super session. So thanks for being here with us.
You got it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.